Hello friends. Today I would like to show you how I'm editing my concept time. I've got this sand clock and it was a foggy day, so I photographed the clock in the fog, and it almost looks like a white wall, but actually it's a foggy ocean. And I photographed it from two different sides because my idea was I was going to make it almost like float. Like I was going to Photoshop out those hands, and then I was thinking about putting this clock on this background because I didn't really want it to look like it's a white wall. I wanted to have it a little bit of texture. So I photographed the ocean and the foggy ocean a little bit underexposed, so you can actually see the texture of the water. And then I was going to Photoshop myself inside of this clock. I was going to Photoshop myself collecting the sand coming from above. Unfortunately, the fog was very fast, so by the time I was done with the clock, it was gone and it was a sunny day. So I had to photograph myself on another day. And as you can see, the lighting is completely different. It was a very sunny day, so I had to wait until sunset, and after sunset, right after sunset, I photographed myself. I set up the timer, and I was just doing this yoga pose, the camel pose, and I was holding the sand, and I'm using an intervalometer which allows to take photographs every 3 seconds or 2 seconds, whatever you set it to, and I set it to one image every 2 seconds, and it was taking images, and I was quite happy with this one because, as you can see, it looks like I do have a sand and it goes down. The only thing is that the temperature of this colors is completely different than over here, so I'll definitely need to fix it. So first of all, I will start from making sure I merge this clock, so I get rid of the hands. So I usually like to make a layer out of the background, and I will create one more layer, and I will select and copy this block over here. You need to create this, okay, this one. And then I usually like to drop opacity a little bit so I can see where the clock is actually going, to make sure it adjusts. So just want it to be like approximately. The most important part is over here, I think. So now I bring back opacity, and I need to get rid of this part. So for this layer, I will create a layer mask, and I will select a soft brush. I'll make sure the hardness is 0, and it's a big enough brush. and I'll make opacity 100% and flow something around 85%. And I will start painting black into this layer mask. Make sure that it's not the layer, but the layer mask is selected. So wherever I paint black, as you can see, it's like magic. It just completely disappears. So we can make this brush a little bit bigger. And here we go. So now we have this part, and I will zoom in because I would like to make sure that everything is very carefully matched. Yeah, you can see this is so pretty. You can see the sand coming down. How great is that? And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this part of the image. All right. And I'll just crop it. So as you can see, it looks like a perfect clock without any hands. So what we are going to do now is I'm thinking about adding another layer at the bottom for the background, for this texture, because I do like the idea of having a texture, but let me see. I usually really like having square images, so I'm going to change my dimension a little bit. So here we go. And now if we go down and just maybe stretch this, we get this beautiful kind of borders, which we don't really want. The reason why is because, as I mentioned before, I underexposed it. So if I go to image adjustment and slightly bring up brightness, what happens is it helps to like even it out a little bit. And then I'm going to merge these two layers, but I'm not going to do merge layers like that, because if I do that, it will be it will not be possible to change it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable this for a short while, and I'm going to make to bring them together. So what happens is it just if you press Command Option Shift E, it merges layers that you selected, and you can get them together merged. And then if I bring back this layer, you can actually bring it over here. but I still have those two just in case I notice something or I want to do something with them. So now I will create a layer mask over here, and I will just drop flow and probably drop opacity a little bit, and I will just make sure that I can't see these borders. You see, I'm painting in the mask and it just disappears, which is beautiful. Just make sure that your brush is soft, that the hardness of your brush is 0%, because otherwise it will be harsh edges and we don't want that. So this looks pretty good. Yeah. So here we go. We have this beautiful sand clock, and I would just look very carefully because I can see there is a little bit of the line left, and we want to make sure it's all gone. So we need to zoom in and mask it. So it is just kind of blends in with the background. Okay, that's it. So now when this is done, we are going to add myself. We will select lasso tool and we will just roughly select myself, and I will keep a little bit of sand around because the whole point of photographing myself in the sand was that now I can make it extra believable that I'm sitting on that sand in the clock. And now I press Command J and it makes it a selection, and I'm selecting it, Command C, and I can create another layer, and Command B. Here I am. So now I am making sure I match with this. Yes, like this. So I'm going to make sure that I delete all these edges from the previous image. So I'm creating a mask and I'm creating a brush, but this time I'm looking at this edge and it's not so soft, so I will bring hardness a little bit up like that, and I'll make the size of the brush much smaller, and I will paint black. I will bring opacity up and I will bring flow up because I'm using a mouse because my pen tablet unfortunately isn't working right now. So as you can see, the edge is a little bit visible, so I'll make sure I zoom in and I will play with brush hardness, so I will make it a little bit softer, and I will maybe drop flow a little bit, and I will make sure that when I delete it, that wouldn't be a problem if I photographed myself on that foggy day, because then the background would be completely the same and the colors would be the same, but unfortunately it was not possible, so but it is something good to learn. So I'm going to speed up this part of the tutorial so you don't have to watch for like half an hour how I'm doing it. And I will return to normal speed as soon as I'm done. This starts looking pretty good. The most difficult part to blend is this part because the light was so very different. And if we look at the overall image, we can also see that the whole thing is so dark blue, and the person in this image is like pink and almost like pink golden because it was right after sunset and it wasn't a foggy day. So what we can do is we can balance the colors of these two images. So if we go to the layer where there is a person, and if we go and create this color balance layer, and if we press Alt, we can clip this layer and it will only affect the layer with the person. Now double click on this and we can play around. We can just go a little bit. If we go too much, you see what happens. But if we go just a little bit and then maybe a little bit cyan and just play around with this colors. And it's interesting to look at this part because this is the part we are really interested in. Maybe if we go a little bit greener, a little bit more yellow, a little bit more blue, you see it starts to kind of blend in much more. In this way. And right now the numbers are absolutely big. We don't want that. We probably want just a tiny bit. Let's look. Let's compare. This is after and this is before. And as you can see, the difference is absolutely impressive. It looks so much more this part, it looks very light, so I would probably just mask it a little bit more and I would play with different opacities and flow and different hardnesses. I would go to 0 and maybe I would go to opacity maybe 15% and I will just little bit mask those whitenesses out because I really like the fact that all these chunks of sand are visible. It's beautiful, but at the same time I don't like that the color is so different, so I will just take away a little bit of those, to make sure there is no halo around my hands. And yeah, this looks pretty good because this is actually the original sand coming down, and this is the sand on the beach, and I'll make it a little bit lighter. I'm just like masking it with very little flow, so it looks a little bit more transparent, so it kind of like blends in a little bit. Because obviously the sand on the beach was much darker than the sand, the white sand in my sand clock. Just make sure it's kind of slightly matches. How does that look? Oh, that looks much better. So now is the most interesting part, the most creative one. So what happens right now? It's just there is our background that we don't really see much. Then there is the clock, and then there is myself in here. But if we put myself behind the clock, make sure the color balance travels with me, and then if we make clock a little bit more right. This looks interesting, right? So here we are. This is the background. This is myself. This is the clock. We want to create this illusion that I am inside this clock. And to make it look that way, we need to make sure the glass is above me, like the layer with the glass is actually above me. But there are things I really like. For example, I really like how if I put the clock above, I look like I am inside of it. What I don't look like though is that because I'm making the clock opacity down, it looks not as sharp. It looks different. Like this is how it looks in reality, and this is how it looks if I change opacity. So in that case, what we can do, we can duplicate this clock. We can make one clock above and one clock below. So, and now in the above one, we can make more transparent, and the below one will make sure that the original clock is visible. Isn't it great? Okay, there is one more tiny problem. I don't know if you see that, but because we are adding this clock above, you can see this line over here. So we definitely need to mask it out. So we will select again the brush, the black brush, and we'll make opacity 100 and flow 100, and we will just mask it out. So now everything looks we will mask it out, but not so much. What we will do, we will go to opacity and we'll just mask it, but we'll make sure that it's not 100%. The reason why is because we don't want parts of me to be completely visible, because we do want some of this glass effect. But now when we are masking out that part, it kind of loses it. But see, that's what it looks like now. And let's zoom in to see if, no, that's all good. Alright, so this looks so much better. Okay, now this one. Let's see if adding background will make this image more interesting. If I add this, if I actually add it above, I can actually do that. I can add it like this, and I can add it a little bit. No one will know we stretched it like that, but it will be a little bit more interesting this way. And to be honest, I don't know if it'll look better or not. I will just experiment, because that's what I usually do when I create. This is a little bit too dark. I'll just go a little bit lighter. And I will just play with different ways. Okay, that looks quite decent, right? I can also notice there is a line over here. I will show you how to get rid of those lines so you won't have such an issue. And also I can see the texture adds over here, so we will probably mask it out. But for now, I would just like to play and see what it looks like. Okay, oh wow, I do love this one. I really like this one. How about if I add another layer? Curves. I like adding curves, and I will clip it to this layer only. So, and I'll play with it. I'll see what it looks like. Okay, yeah, this looks quite good. And you see, because I chose multiply, because this clock, it's sand clock and it's glass, and it does look like it is transparent, which is great, I think. It adds reality to it. So what else? I quite like it. I'm quite happy with it. What I'll do at the end, I like playing with color. And there are different ways I play with color, but just to save time, I currently started using this infinite color panel, and I just like seeing what it'll come up with. So it's a very automatic tool, and I quite like it, because sometimes I we'll just see what it looks like with different color options, and then I will choose, and I may modify it a little bit if I don't like it, or if it's too strong, or if it is too harsh. And I can spend a long time in playing with color, but right now, because I'm making this tutorial, I promise I won't be Okay, I do like this one, but it's a little bit too strong for me, so I'll just go in opacity a little bit less. And I will also go and create curves for the whole picture, and I do like things to be a little bit brighter, a little bit more dreamy. I do like that and a little bit cinematic wash effect. Okay, I don't know what has just happened. I have to start it over. Okay. 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 I will check colors again because I don't know. Now it looks kind of green and I don't really like it. I would prefer it to be a little bit more blue, or maybe something like this looks actually quite good. The only thing is I can barely see this and I love seeing it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add another curve and I'm going to go it all the way down, almost like exaggerated, but at least we can see it so well. So now I'm going to invert it to make it all black, and I'm going to paint white in parts where I really would like this to be visible. And in this case, I want it to be not so strong, so I will dial it down. But I do want these details to make sure that this line is visible. And I will probably add a little bit more right here. Yeah, now it looks so much better just by making things a little bit more darker and visible. So as you can see before, it's like a little bit washed off and after, but now after I turned it on and off, I can see it's too strong, so it's way too strong, and I can also see there are parts of it which are I need to clean because it's just too dirty. And then I will also dial down opacity, so this way, as you can see, it's not that bad. Alright, let's see if that looks good or not. I always like switching on and off and seeing if I actually like the effect, because sometimes before the effect it looks better than after. Like I will dial down this a little bit. And now I really like it as it is right now, but I also like playing with opacity and seeing if maybe if I go back to myself and to this clock, and if I bring it slightly transparency back, I just want to see what it will look like if I'm less visible or more visible, because I do want people to see what's in the clock, but at the same time I do want that, like, this is the difference, this is how it looks like 100%. It's so it's not, it doesn't look like it's behind the glass, but if I go down, it starts looking so much better. But I also don't want it to look so washed out that you don't know what it is. Okay, so something here may be good. Okay, so I may also do, I may also go to color balance again and just make it a little bit bluer rather than greener, because I do like this like more deep blue color, and then I will see if maybe I'll add a little bit of magenta. Yeah, I definitely like it when it's this tones. Okay, now I'm looking at that. Looks pretty good. I will probably add another curve because I see this is too dark for me. I don't particularly like when on my fine art images there are very black and dark parts. Let me see. No, actually, I'll delete that and I'll go back to this curve and I'll just go back and let's see. Okay, as you can see, there is also this part which we haven't dealt with, but I'll do it at the very end when I'm almost done with this concept. I would like to also see if I add gradient, the color probably something like this, and overlay. No, that doesn't look good at all. But I like looking at options, and I like seeing if the reason why is because I was thinking if I add gradient at the top, if it'll look good, because I feel like it's a lot of it's just a lot of very bright space, and I don't really like it. I would rather have a little bit dark space, but it doesn't really look good. So I don't know, maybe I can add a curve. As you can see, it's a lot of experimenting. Oh yeah, this I like so much more. So I sometimes like making gradient this way. I just drop down the curve and I go all the way up like this. And then I invert curve so it's not visible. And I go with a white, big, very, very soft brush with very little opacity, very little flow, and I just kind of darken sides up, but you can barely notice it, but it does make a difference. If you see, it's just, it brings everything in, especially on this image where everything is so white and so bright. If we just bring a little bit of color and shade, into this, the clock will pop up a little bit more. Okay, let's see what it looks like. And I will always dial down if I don't like it. Before or after. Maybe just a little bit. And then I will go to new, and I will probably create another curve, and I'll brighten it a little bit up. And again, I will just add, it's like dodge and burn, if you're familiar with that technique. And I will just add a little bit of light into me and see how that looks. I have rather dark hair. Used to be blonde, but not anymore. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, now when I'm zooming out, I can see that this actually doesn't look that good anymore. And I also can see how, okay, that's not so bad. Okay, the only thing we need to deal with right now is this this line over here, and also, as you can see, there is this thing. The funny thing is, I was just, because I needed to focus on something, I used this stick, and I told myself several times that I definitely need to Photoshop it out. Okay. And other than that, I think it looks interesting. Okay, I'm going to clip to merge all of that into a layer, which is Shift Alt Command E. And now I'm just going to go here and use Patch Tool and get rid of the line, just like by magic. What I'm going to do to make sure I got rid of it, I will just drop this down. This curve, it's not for anything, it's just to make sure I see imperfections and I can get rid of them, because now I can see there is a line and it's not visible if I don't do it with this curve layer. So I get rid of it over here as well. Okay, now I see something happened over here. I just close that. Okay, let's turn off the curve. Over here, another line. Over here, just a little bit of patch to make sure we don't have any lines, and also we can use cloning if it's too difficult for the patch line. Make sure that if you use clone, that opacity is down, flow is down, so it's not harsh, it's just little bit smoothing out. Let's see. Okay, this looks pretty good. As long as there are no sharp like lines. Let's see. So it's not visible on the screen, but if you print your work, it will be right there. So it's good to make sure we can get rid of it before it's too late and it's all printed. And sometimes you can just do that, but because of the water it's so much easier to use patch tool because it actually understands like the ripples and it can see where it merges. So okay, that's pretty good. The only last thing that I would do, oh right, the this. Just again, let's see if patch tool will do its job, and yes it does, it did its job just perfectly. The only one last thing for this image I'm going to do is I am going to duplicate this top layer of everything together, and I'm going to add sharpness to this image. If you go to filter and you choose other and high pass, you can choose it something like this, so you can see the edge, but it's not too much. And then you get this image and you go to normal overlay, and you see how sharp it looks, but we don't really want that to look that sharp because it's just over the top sharp. So we'll add some mask and we will invert it, and we are going to add a little bit of sharpness to my eyes, to this chunks of sand. And maybe much less flow, much less opacity. Not 1, but like 35 to just myself. So when the viewer looks, the eye travels. It's such a tiny difference, but it actually makes a difference. So I think I'm pretty happy with it. I usually like leaving my work for at least one night and look at it in the morning and see if I like the colors, if I like everything. So I'm pretty happy with this one, but I may look again in the morning and maybe slightly adjust colors or if I forgot anything, but it looks like everything is pretty good. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you have any questions, please message me and I'll try my best to answer them.